action.
Well, it was funny. I went out on my errands today to go look for like casters to put my rack on wheels and buy cat treats. And I couldn't figure out what type of wheel I wanted to put on there, so I was disappointed. But the one thing that I managed to do when I was out, besides find a free copy of Neil Postman in front of the Iliad, was to get cat treats and instant pistachio pudding at Big Lots on the way back. And so I was excited. I got onto the Orange Line, and it was, 6:45 in the evening,
Mm-hmm.
and it's packed like sardines.
Yeah.
Like it is all the time.
Even in
Most of the day, even in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Noon you'll ride it, and it's, you're pushed up against each other like the Lambada.
I know.
But we're coming from North Hollywood Station, and there's this lady sitting in the aisle it was like she was facing sideways,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and there were people, facing her like that, and then the regular rows of the bus over here.
Mm-hmm.
She had this like pillow scarf she was knitting out of black yarn, and pleasant and attractive, and there's a guy on the bus flirting with her. He's like, hey, it's, how long have you been working on that? That must have taken you hours and hours. And she's like, well, I, started on my lunch break today. It's big thread. And the guy's like, yeah, I used to work at Michael's or something like that. And, I always saw people buying yarn, but I didn't know how they could make things with yarn. And she's, showing, well, here, I have to pay real close attention to it because I'm, kind of a hobbyist, and if I don't pay close attention, I'll screw up. And he's like, yeah, that's cool. And you can see that this guy is so proud to talk to a pretty girl. And I don't know, I turned around and I focused on something else for a minute, but coming from the guy sitting next to the girl knitting is this older guy who is going in a sound that is somewhere between like choking or
Throat.
ejaculating. And the guy is sitting, it's like his arm was holding his thumb in his belt loop or something like that. So his hand is near his crotch, and he starts to have a seizure that at the early outset nobody does anything about, because it looks like there's a guy pleasuring himself next to a pretty girl on the bus. But he continues to convulse, and then people are like, "Ah, crap!" And this is, is we're literally like 200 feet from the corner at Burbank there by Valley College. So
Oh, yeah, all right, yeah.
when we get to the Valley College stop, at this point, the guy has been experiencing this seizure, which at first I was like, my God, look at this guy,
Right.
being a pervert on the bus. But then, like, the lady on the other side of him is like, oh my God, he's having a seizure. Look at this. We should open his mouth
And do the thing with the tongue. And
do the thing with the tongue. And
be ready for CPR,
they laid him out on the
Yeah.
seat, and somebody yelled out, "Is there a doctor?" Call the paramedics. So I called 911, and some guy up in the front of the bus is like, I'm not a paramedic, but I was in the Army and I saw, this happened to a couple of my friends. So he, laid the guy down and held his hand, and then somebody was like, we should give him water, and people were like, yeah, and somebody else was, you fucking give him water, he's gonna die. So people didn't give him any water, and
Actually, if he's seizing, he could choke.
yeah,
It's really not a good idea.
But
Wipe the face, but don't put anything down the throat.
yeah. So we called 911. The bus is now stuck at Valley College Station.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And somehow in filling out like the incident report card and making sure that the guy gets off the bus, and they were like, is he conscious? So we tried to talk to him, and he didn't respond for a while, and then he responded at the point where people came from the ambulance, and he was like, thank you, or
So you're now a witness to a city incident.
So
yeah.
Shit.
And left my cat treats at the scene. But, yeah. At some point in time, I'm going to figure there's probably like a better moral to that story.
That was definitely an adventure in public transportation. Definitely.
Yeah.
But